I'm dysfunctional. It's always been that way. It's nothing personal. Pull you in to push you away. I'm emotional. I don't know if it's better if I'm on my own. It's nothing personal. And you're not to blame. It's not you, it's me. My personality needs that missing piece. I thought love was the answer to all of my problems, and kissing your lips was the key. All these tattoos and dancing distractions ain't working for me. So I think that maybe I just need therapy. My own worst enemy. Again and again, insecurities that you can only mend temporarily. I can see I'm hurting you. It's agony and apologies. They won't change anything. It's not you, it's me. My personality, I need fixing, please. I thought love was the answer to all of my problems, and kissing your lips was the key. All these tattoos and dancing distractions ain't working for me. So I think that maybe I just need therapy. I just need therapy. And after all is said and done, I'm running back to you. Maybe you'll be moving on and found somebody new. As long as I have found myself to win, sometimes you lose. And I can't believe that I thought love was the answer to all of my problems, and kissing your lips was the key. All these tattoos and dancing distractions ain't working for me. So I think that maybe I just needed therapy. Just needed therapy. Just needed therapy.
Therapy session, December 16th, 2021. I'm in the Airbnb with my kids up in Flagstaff. Hello? Can you hear me?
Can hear you. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good. I'm at home today.
Okay.
At least tonight. I was in the office all day, but I left early.
Cool.
So you're on your phone. It looks like.
We're actually up in Flagstaff right now. I'm staying at an Airbnb.
Oh, cool. That's fun.
Yeah,
How's it going?
it's good. I took the kids up here. I made a decision and just went.
Good. It's good for you.
Yeah, it's like
Is
practicing.
it snowy? Is it snow on the ground?
There's some, yeah. It's gonna snow next week, so a lot of it's melted, they say up here. But I think it looks pretty. I told Brooklyn yesterday where we were going. I'm working through my feelings of guilt and shame and hesitation and all that.
For leaving and going up there?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's explore that a little bit. Why are you feeling guilt and shame? Because it's out of your comfort zone?
Kind of, but mainly because I didn't get Jim's blessing.
Okay. So think about it. The key is just try to think about it logically and rationally and not emotionally.
Right.
Like, do you need his blessing? Would he need your blessing?
I think
that type of,
in like a ideal relationship, I should be able to say, "Hey, I'm taking the kids up to Flagstaff. I'm telling you as a courtesy, so you know where your children are.
Right.
That's like a typical hypothetical relationship I'd like to have with him, but I don't have that.
Right, and because, but see, that's what is typical, right? I don't like using the word normal, but typical, right? In a typical relationship, so, yeah, I was thinking about taking the kids up to Flagstaff, and he would say, okay, or he would say, well, did you think about this? We have this plan or that plan or whatever, but you work it out and you figure it out, but it's never a question of whether it's appropriate or not, right?
Well, and I think that's where I probably get too lost in how he might feel about it.
Right.
And I feel like he would come up with every reason for me not to go.
So, when we talk about things like cognitive distortions and like CBT therapy, a lot of it's based on irrational thinking, right? So you have to ask yourself, like what is irrational? Is it irrational for you to want to take your kids up and spend some one-on-one time with your kids? No, that's not irrational. Now, if you decided to just disappear with your kids for a week or a month, that could be borderline. That could be irrational. Or is it irrational that you have to ask and get permission to take your kids up there? Right? You have to analyze what's irrational, his way of thinking or your way of thinking.
Yeah, and I feel like there's two ways that we operate. We operate on one level, which on the surface as typical or superficial or basic, and then the other level is more complex. That's like a behind the scenes thing, the dance or the entanglement that we do. So I had him go help me pick up some Christmas presents today. So we were together today. So I had plenty of opportunity to talk to him about it and tell him. But I feel like my mom's logic that I was raised on doesn't feel right, but it feels safest. So my mom's logic when it comes to the truth is if the person can't handle the truth, it's best not to discuss it at all and just hide it from them or something like that. And I feel like that kind of logic is not where I feel like a healthy relationship is. But at the same time, I knew that, okay, let's just say I said it. Let's say I said something about going up there. And if he had feelings about it and he had a problem with it and I was strong enough to address it, I feel like there'd be hurt feelings if I went anyway. And then if I felt bad enough and I felt attached to his feelings enough, I probably wouldn't have gone at all if he gave me reason to stay, or all the reasons why he didn't think I should go, or all the reasons why I should probably invite him to come with us. Do you know what I mean? I just didn't want him influencing my decision, so I didn't want to tell him.
Right, and a lot of, remember when you first came to start seeing me, we discussed a lot and identified a lot of the way you saw things and the way you handled things and the way you did things was based on what you had to resort to because of the circumstance you were in.
Right.
In other words, you typically wouldn't see things a certain way or feel like you had to do things in a certain way to protect yourself, to protect your kids, to keep the peace in the house. But because of the situation you're in, you do what you have to do to get through it.
Right.
Right. Even though you know deep down, yeah, I probably shouldn't be doing this. You still do it because it's a defense mechanism. It's a protection mechanism.
It is a
right?
protection, yeah.
And this is just another one of those examples where, in a typical healthy relationship, you could talk and say, hey, I feel like I need to spend some one-on-one time with the kids. I think it would be healthy for us to just go up and hang out. And he would be like, yeah, okay. Every relationship, depending on what's going on at the time and scheduling, but you work it out one way or another, right?
Right. If I was going to be gone more than one night, I would feel more obligated to tell him because it's not typical for me to have them for more than one night.
Well, like I tell my wife, if I'm going to leave the house, or she'll tell me, like I just know she's leaving, but it's a courtesy. It's not a permission.
Right.
Right. Oh, hey, honey, I'm going to run up to the store and grab this or that. I feel like having a soda or something we don't have. I'm going to run up and grab some. And it's like, oh, okay, can you get me? It's never really a question, but I would never leave without telling her. The only reason I wouldn't is because I've never had an issue with it.
Right.
Right. Now, if she was very jealous and overprotective and didn't trust me, she having to resort to other ways of doing that, and I can see how easy it is to go down that road.
Right.
Right, where I would maybe tell her I was doing something else and then stop, or whatever, or if she's asleep, seeing if I could make it there and back without her knowing about it, or, things like that. But I've never had to do those things.
Right.
Right.
A couple of things come to mind. One, it was really hard for me to tell Jim that I was thinking about going up to Idaho to see my grandparents. And I haven't gone yet, but working through those feelings of I want to go to Idaho and see my grandparents, conversation finally came up, and he encouraged me and he says, you should go. And I was so surprised by his response that it gave me this sense of relief and permission and approval that I've always wanted from him, especially going on a trip by myself and knowing how he feels about stuff like that. So I didn't want to need his permission for this sort of trip. And then when I started talking to him more about my trip to Idaho, I failed to tell him that I wanted to bring the kids with me. So when I was talking nonchalant about the kids coming with me to Idaho, that's kind of where he pumped the brakes and was telling me it's a bad idea. The kids would miss too much school and the kids would be bored and the kids wouldn't appreciate the trip and they'd have to wait for you need to do this for you. It didn't sound to me like his reasons for me to not bring the kids were genuine. It sounded manipulative in the sense that he would be envious or jealous that I was going on a family trip without him. And so it was hard for me to make a decision to not take my kids because I knew it would please my husband, but I had to come up with my own reason why I wasn't going to take the kids, not because Jim's reasons. I ended up talking to the kids and they agreed with me that they would be bored. The road trip could be fun itself, but they don't know anybody up there. They would probably be more bored and rolling their eyes and on their phones when I'm trying to visit, and then I'd feel obligated to stop my visiting to go be with my kids and they'd feel bad that I didn't get to visit because I was being with them. And it's not one of those ideal vacations that would have been good for all three of us. So that's why I wanted to do this Flagstaff trip, where it wasn't about anybody else but just the three of us. And
it's just for a couple days.
well, yeah, we'll go home tomorrow. I just got here tonight, so it's just a 1-day trip. But just the decision of being able to do something like this without the approval, without the validation, without the permission is already a big deal to me. So to do 1 day, I'm breaking through so many internal barriers that I'm really proud of myself. But yeah, it's nerve-wracking.
Yeah, I get it.
The other thing I'm not really proud of is right when we started leaving the apartment, I asked both of the kids to turn off their location off their cell phones.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm not on Jim's tracker app anymore, but the kids are. And they should be. I would want the kids on mine, and he should have access to know where the kids are at. And the other thing I was thinking about is if he asked me what we had planned tonight out of curiosity or respect or whatever, I would give him the courtesy and tell him. But he doesn't ever ask me questions unless it's intrusive questions. You know what I mean?
Oh, no, I get it. Do you feel like that relationship was an enmeshed relationship?
Oh yeah, definitely.
So there's a sense of where you had to submit to the identity of the relationship and sacrifice your own identity.
Yep, that's exactly what I realized years ago, was I don't have an identity if I don't submit to Jim's ideas on what he's wanting.
And a healthy, like looking back on it now, right? Like where you're at now, you understand that a healthy relationship, you don't lose your own identity. There's the identity of the relationship, and then each person still has their own individual identities.
Yeah, that's what I was begging from Jim years ago before I left, before I even moved out of the bedroom. I told him I wanted to know who I was without having to please him all the time. And I wanted to start separating, but stay on our own path. I even begged him after I moved out to recognize that I'm not trying to leave him. I'm just trying to detangle myself from him and stay on the path of what I want, which is I want a family. I want to see my kids. I want to have Christmases and birthdays and family dinners. And I don't see why I have to submit to his anger and jealousy about movies and beaches and, going swimming or even just visiting my mom and all the things that he has such an anger for. Why do I have to see it his way anymore? I don't subscribe to his beliefs anymore. I told him that years ago. I don't subscribe to your beliefs.
Well, for you, what you were running into, identity and individuality and independence, was a threat to him.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And so to protect yourself, you had to subscribe to only the identity of the relationship.
Mm-hmm.
That's not healthy.
No.
Right? And, and if the relationship were to work, you have to have a positive self-concept and a strong sense of personal identity and a strong sense of self-worth and being confident in what you deserve and what you believe, and all of those things are part of a healthy relationship. So if you about it, if you have a strong sense of self-identity, it only improves the relationship.
Yeah. That's exactly what I've been trying to work on since moving on my own. I keep asking myself, who am I if I'm not getting the approval from Jim, if I'm not getting the permission from Jim? What decisions do I make without Jim? who am I without him? And then I also didn't want to move in with my mom because I didn't want to mesh with her identity and what she wanted of me and what she thinks I should be doing every day or what I should be doing with my time off. And so it's been difficult, but it's been freeing because I get to discover who I am.
So I wouldn't be as concerned about stability as far as place to lay your head and location, as long as you maintain connection with people. The problem is usually someone that has that gypsy mentality, they're so out there and moving around like a nomad. And because of that lifestyle, they lose connection with relationship. I think that the key to it is maintaining connection with people and relationship. If you start losing that, your ability to connect, not only to people and relationships, but connecting to, we talk about grounding. It's to the present moment.
Right.
That's really what grounding is it's connection. It's connecting to the things around us. This is solid, this is here, this is now, this is what it feels like, this is in the present moment. It's smooth, it's rough, whatever. It's connection. When you start retreating further and further and further inside of your head, you start losing connection to relationships, to people, to your environment, to everything. And because of that, you remember we talked before about the present moment is the only reality there is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember. Because the future hasn't happened yet and the past can't be rewritten.
Right. And so the only real reality is the present moment. The further you retreat inside your head, the more you start losing connection to the present. You start losing connection with reality. Once you lose connection to reality is when you start focusing on things that are irrational and allow your mind to take you wherever it's going to take you. The only place your mind can really take you is somewhere other than the present moment.
And I think I've gone there several times in my victimness and my...
Oh, yeah, I'm sure. Because trauma does that. That's the one thing about like PTSD.
Yeah.
Is we lose connection. And those are the questions on the assessments is, do you feel like you've lost connection with the people around you? Do you feel like you can't have loving, close relationships with the people around you? Because that's what our spirit is designed to do, is to help us connect, to help us ground ourselves, connecting to our environment, connecting to nature, connecting to people, right? And here's the thing is when you lose that completely, and you're spiritually dead.
Oh. Well, and that's like the Maslow's hierarchy, where you need that community, that connection to others.
Yeah, you have to have that.
And a lot of...
You'll never have self-actualization without that.
Right. I essentially could save a lot of money by moving out because they're going to raise my rent $300 more, and I'm already working 3 jobs just to keep up as it is. So, yeah, I guess, what was I going to say? I was going to say right now it's Christmas time. And I notice to keep the peace, I don't know if it's part habitual or, survival mode. I don't know what the heck I'm doing, but I'm keeping the peace and I'm not speaking up and I'm not speaking my truth as much or keeping my independence as much, because it would make everybody happy if I didn't. Like, I went and saw my mother-in-law last night, and we're going to do Christmas at Jim's, and we did Thanksgiving, and so it's like, yeah, that feels a heck of a lot better than being by myself and asserting my independence. I don't know.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. In a perfect world, you wouldn't have to think in terms of I'm independent now. Now I'm gonna deny my independence and be dependent. You wouldn't have to think in those terms in a perfect world, right?
And I am afraid of that slippery slope where I'm not just dependent, but I'm also attached and enmeshed, and I'm reliant on their approval and reliant on their, a permission. Even just the idea of me having to wake up at 6 a.m., living at my mom's, for example, when she goes to bed like at 2, and she's going to be walking on eggshells to prevent me from waking up, and I'm going to be walking on eggshells to prevent myself from waking her up. It's just such a different dynamic that I don't really. And then my biggest question is how is this going to affect my kids if I don't have a place for them to come over to? Am I setting a poor example by not being in my own stable place? And I'm just like, I feel like I'm right back to where I was before I moved out of gyms, trying to grasp what to do.
Well, I mean, it would be a interim plan, like a temporary period, right? If you did move out of there and stayed at your mom's part, like what you were talking about,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I know that's not your permanent destination,
No, it's just
right?
on a week to week basis, day to day basis. If my kids wanted to come see me,
Yeah.
they couldn't really spend the night. They couldn't really, you know what I'm saying? So it's like,
No, I understand. I know.
I went and looked at storage units today.
How did that go?
It's probably a premature to be looking, but it kind of gave me an idea what the size looked like. And even a 10 by 20 space with no windows seemed pretty dark and depressing kind of thing. Like, I would almost rather try to find a friend who had, I don't know, an extra room that I could set up,
Yeah.
a little mini apartment that I could have my own space at, and then
Yeah.
be a nomad in that regard, where I have my space at a friend's. I go to my mom sometimes I'm at gyms with the kids. I'm not always at, but my friend's house kind of thing would be probably healthier for me than trying to shove all my stuff in a garage or a locker, like a storage
Yeah.
shed.
No, I agree. I think that's true. Like, and you could find that. I mean, that's definitely an option. And when do you plan on leaving that apartment?
Well, I have to give my notice on February 1st for 30 days. My lease is
Okay.
up on March 1st.
Okay,
And
so you've got a couple months.
yeah, and they haven't told me yet that they want me to renew my lease. But with the going rates and the supply and demand of apartments and stuff like that, I don't see them letting me stay at the same rate that I have. And I'm really having a hard time accepting how much I've wasted on renting, considering the house that I used to live in a year ago is paid off, and I'm the one that picked it out to live in.
Hmm.
It's my home, and I still walk in it like it's my home, and I still have an attachment to it. I haven't moved all my mail yet. Like, there's so many things about this in between stage that make me go crazy, because I don't know who I am without my husband and kids, and I don't want to keep exploring it when I have no reason to shut everybody out. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I understand. The question is, say that you move back in there. Okay. Do you feel like you can maintain a healthy balance?
Not all the time. Honestly, I probably couldn't. Like today, I had to bite my tongue so many times when I wanted to say what I wanted to say.
Hmm.
And I felt compromised. I felt like my emotional safety was in danger by compromising my wants and my needs and my feelings and my interests and my, opinion. Like, why do I have to feel second class to Jim all the time?
Yeah.
And then one idea that I had, a friend of mine told me it was a great idea, and I haven't really been sold on it, is she says, why don't you go to Jim's parents since they own the house? Let them know that you want to be treated like a tenant that has equal, an equal respect and responsibility. And instead of paying Jim 300 or 500 a month or whatever, pay it to Jim's parents. And then they can in turn invest into that home if they so choose. Maybe they can take a section of it and turn it into a livable space, like an apartment with its own like toilet or its running sink or kitchenette. And I'm like, I'm not even sure I need all that. But the idea of having a separate entrance, a door that he can't barge in whenever he wants, like I'd have a key, he'd have to treat me like equal respect. Because I keep going back to analyze what happened with me and Jim, because the eggshells and the tippy-toeing was manageable up until 2010 when I lost my job, and we agreed that we would move into this house his parents bought for us and we would pay his parents back. But there was always some unequalness to it where I felt like he had this thing over me, like he was now better than me. We were no longer struggling to pay rent every month together. Now his parents own it, and I have to just shut up and be grateful. I have to be quiet and be grateful. And so now,
balance of power shifted at that point.
yeah, the balance definitely shifted, especially because that was the year he slapped me. That was the year I lost my job. That was the year we made the decision for me to stay home with the kids, not bring in income. My job was to keep the house clean, and he would make comments every day on how it wasn't clean and how I wasn't doing my job very well. Like nothing felt equal until I got my full-time job at the city, and that felt the most equal that I had felt in so long. But that was in 2013, so you can imagine if I was to go back to his house, one thing I would want to say maybe is grant me a divorce so that we are co-parents under the same roof, being a family, but you have no rights over me. I'm not your wife. I don't have to check in with you. If I do, it's out of courtesy, and I don't need your permission. Like, if you want to marry me again, we got to start from the ground up, and we haven't even begun to do that yet,
Yeah. Well, he technically shouldn't have rights over you even if you're married.
Well, and that's where I think a lot of my trauma, my thinking is skewed. There would have to be so many drastic changes that would have to happen so that I don't fall into that same trap in my head, thinking, because I could see it just happening so quickly, where even just today in his truck, I'm in his truck, he's driving, I felt like I need to get out of this truck. This isn't okay with the way he's treating me and talking to me right now, But I'm like, no, Crystal, you've got no rights right now. You have no choice. You're driving 60 miles on Grand Avenue. Like, you need to shut up and just play nice. And if that's just in the truck on a quick ride to go pick up Christmas presents, what's going to happen in the house?
Right.
If I don't have my own space that I'm paying rent for and I don't feel like I'm my own person, I'm just going to fall right back into shut up, Crystal,
Well, that's part of the PTSD I think you're going through, is his insecurity and fear triggers like that need to be in control, right? And you're so used to him exerting that control that now you don't feel comfortable in any situation where you don't have an out.
Yeah.
And you don't have some sort of control over what happens.
And it would really stink if we did get the house all set up and I'm supposed to live there and pay rent and I'm not liking it. and I want to leave again. And then what does that do to my kids by leaving again? What does that do to him and our friendship that we're working on? It's like, it's almost like I'm not ready for that to even be a possibility until I feel really secure about that. So it's like, I'd rather do the nomad thing and slowly work up the courage to even talk to him about it if I feel like he could handle me living there, not being in a wife sense, and I could feel like I could do it and be strong enough. Because I feel like I'm strong in so many ways. But again, I'm in my own space. I have my own curfew for myself. I have my own boundaries. I don't feel like he's got anything on me right this second. The only thing he has on me is the kids, you know?
Right. And here's the other side of it. So like the nomad, you call it the nomad thing, right? The nomad thing is not a situation that can't be undone, right? It's not a permanent. In other words, you make a decision to, you have to leave the apartment anyway, right? You stay at your mom's part-time, you have some other place you stay part-time, you go to the house every once in a while. If that doesn't work out, it's not like you can't reverse that and make another decision. It's not like you're signing a lease that you can't get out of.
True.
You can just make a decision, hey, this isn't working out, I don't like the way this feels, I'm going to do something else.
Right. It's taken me this long just to get used to my home, my apartment that I'm living in, and now I'm going to uproot myself, which scares the daylights out of me, and Jim looks like a better option at this point. Now, last year at this time, I was talking to my mom about the idea of moving my twin bed into a storage unit with a lot of my essentials. And then I said, I'm to the point where if they won't let me sleep in the storage shed, I'll sleep in my car. And she freaked out enough to say that she would help me get into my own apartment because she understood that if I moved in with her, I would more than likely gravitate back to Jim because it would be the lease that would keep me in my own place, not the nomad lifestyle, And so now I'm right back to where I was a year ago, thinking I'm afraid I'm just going to end up spending the night at Jim's every night if I don't have a strong sense of self, which I do think I have a stronger sense of self, but the apartment is what's helping me. Crystal, just go home. Crystal, just go home. Crystal, just go home. And I go home. You know what I mean?
Well, it's a safe place.
Yeah.
You never had a safe place, in all the years you were married. You had that room.
But then he started barging in and accusing me of stuff when I would lock it and stuff. Yeah.
Right, and you need a safe place. I mean, there are some concerns about your mom's from what you described. There's concerns about the house. And so you do need a place to call your own that you can retreat to when you need to. I do feel like that's essential to. Now, obviously, in a perfect world, your safe place would be your home with your husband and your family, but that's not the case right now.
Right. And a lot of me thinks that it's my fault that it's not that way, and I have to remind myself that I can't go there with it. Because, I try to take responsibility on changing it. And, okay, if I just go there and I'm strong enough and stand up to him and take back my power, it's okay. But it's like, I'm not the only equation here.
No. And by thinking that, you're taking on all the responsibility for him and his control issues and his fears and his jealousy and all of that stuff.
Especially...
That is not your baggage.
And even if I let it go and don't take it on, it's very, very triggering for me, and I don't feel at peace, and I feel it's almost like automatic. It's an autopilot for me to just resort right back to walking on eggshells and keeping the peace because it would make him not be like that.
Well, it's habit.
Right.
really about reversing habits and creating new habits. You know, like start with something small and create a new, healthier habit. It can be, something very little that you just implement into your everyday life and you do it no matter what.
Yeah, I've been working
But
a lot of habits.
over time, it just becomes second nature to you. You know, the way that you've protected yourself in your relationship, over time, it's just become ingrained in you and part of who you have had to become. I don't believe it's who you are.
Yeah.
I believe it's what you've had to mold yourself into to keep yourself safe and to keep your sanity and to keep your kids safe and all of that. But the best way to break the habit is not just to try really hard to stop, but it's to implement new habits in place of the old habit.
Right. Like going straight to my apartment after the 12-step group instead of always going back to gyms. It's just a habit.
Right.
Yeah, I get it. And I've been working on that. One idea that I had, I remember you telling me, was the narrative therapy and just working really hard at changing the narrative of what this moving out is supposed to do for me. I really want to buy my own place. And I know 20% down is ideal, but I could probably save $1,000 a month if I don't have to pay it in rent somewhere. And so a year from now, I could look at it, as a year from now, I want to be buying my own place. So I have what I had in my apartment, my space and my epicenter and my anchor and where I'm planted. But I don't want to be working 3 jobs to get there. I want to work. I want to work at finding my I want to work at finding my center and grounding myself even without a expensive apartment to ground myself. Like maybe that's the next challenge. I'm trying to
You don't need an expensive apartment. You just need a safe place that is your own, that you feel comfortable in.
Like the storage center idea, or what's another idea?
Well, I mean, I don't know how safe you would feel in a place like that, but I'm sure you'd feel a lot safer there at certain times, right?
Mm-hmm.
Any place that is a safe zone for you, a comfort zone for you, a place you can go to when you need to. But I like the idea of making it more of a long-term goal. It's easier to get through short-term temporary things like the nomad thing you're talking about or whatever when you know that it's leading somewhere.
Right.
Somewhere positive.
And that's another thing, maybe we can talk about it next week, is Jim had a really hard time with the idea of me having a year lease and me telling him that I didn't want a divorce. I just needed the separation to get strong within myself. And I was trying to explain to him that 1 month or 3 months isn't going to cut it. The year lease may not even be enough. And so by telling him after, I'm going to have to explain to him I'm not coming back home in March.
How long have you been has it been a year that you've been in that apartment?
It'll be a year in March. So I have to make the decision in February, which basically it means it's been 9.5 months right now.
So one good exercise that I think would be helpful for you is to, it's a journaling type of thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you're showing yourself the difference between, and this is part of like the narrative type of thing.
Right.
Like, what was your life like when, near the end when you were in your relationship and not happy and you felt like you were in bondage versus where you're at now almost a year later? The differences in how you feel, how safe you feel, how supported you feel, how validated you feel, all of those things. And then, so that's like two columns, right? Then, now, and then one for the future. Like, like what do you believe you can become, right? What do you believe will happen in another year? Like, how are you going to progress? Because in life, like we tend to see things. You know how when you're involved in something, you don't see it for what it is all the time,
Yeah.
right? Like two people that are in a dysfunctional relationship, like you can look at it and say, "Oh my God, that's so dysfunctional," because you're looking at it from the outside looking in. But they're in the middle of it, so they don't really see it for what it is. But then when they get out of it, they're like, "Oh my God!" Like I look back on that and I'm like, "I can't believe I was ever with that person."
Mm-hmm.
Right? So life is, and I've heard the illustration before. That life is sometimes like you're watching a parade through a knot hole in a fence. You only see what's right in front of you,
Right.
typically. But if you were to be able to sit on a rooftop, you could see the beginning, the middle, and the end. You can see where the parade's been, where it came from, where it is now, and where it's going to be. And it's an exercise that helps you to see your life from a little bit different perspective.
So that was one of the things I mentioned to Jim before I moved out was imagine us 10 years from now. I have a book on the shelf with fancy letters behind my name about how we made it through and all the trials and tribulations we went through to get to that point. Yeah, I'm just kind of figuring it out and I'm not sure right now.
Yeah, it's really about seeing your life as a story, right? Like, this is the beginning, this is where I was, this is where I am now, and this is where the story is leading.
Mm-hmm.
And you are the one, you're the author, right? And the finisher of your story. Nobody else.
Right.
Other people are just characters in it.
Right.
You're the one that writes it, right? The way you write it is up to you, right?
Yeah.
And I think so far in your life, in many ways, Jim has been the author of your story.
Until I moved out, yeah.
Right. He's written a large part of your story, and it's a way of taking the pen back and saying, no. This is my story. I'm writing this story.
Right.
And a lot of the validation stuff is allowing others to write your story.
And Karen, before you and I met, she was a big supporter of narrative therapy, and that's how I was able to stop letting Jim lead my day-to-day story, and I moved out of that bedroom based on her daring me, basically.
That was you taking the pen back and saying, no, I'm writing this part of it now.
Right.
Right.
But yeah, me moving back in with Jim, I can't write his part of the story and the way he treats me and stuff.
His, you have to write your own. You have to write his own.
Right.
But you can literally, your life can lead wherever you want it to lead. Right. That's completely up to you.
Right.
But the more you rely on other people for approval and validation, the more you're allowing them to influence your story. Now, the people in our lives, they're always going to have an influence on us, but influence and control are two different things, right? Like my wife influences me, I influence her, my kids influence my life, I influence their life. But when someone has full control over your life, that's when it starts to become
yeah, when you're trying to control the outcome, like I'm trying to control the outcome of his mood by keeping him happy all the time, Right.
You can only control your life and your story.
Right.
He has to control his. But anyway, so next week is
the 23rd.
Okay, so I'll still be working and stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, so this holiday won't affect our sessions at all.
Perfect.
Okay?
Cool. Thank you so much.
All right, I will see you next week.
Alrighty. Thank you.
All right.
All right.
Okay,
Talk to you later. Bye bye.